Are you living in the zombie apocalypse? Are you worried that the zombies are going to outlive you? Well, fear not. My name is Olivia Adams, and I'm here to tell you how to tell the danger level of the zombie by examining the stage of its decomposition.
There are certain types of tissues in your body called epithelial tissues. Simple cuboidal tissue is found in the ducts of glands in the kidney. This epithelial tissue's function is absorption, the diffusion of gases and other nutrients, and secretion, the release of specific chemical substances such as hormones, enzymes, and lubricating substances. Decomposition of simple cuboidal tissue, for example the kidney, results in tissue becoming flabby as it darkens and later becomes green. The kidney can no longer secrete the hormones or enzymes needed for bodily functions. The zombie is negatively impacted as the kidneys filter the blood, and if they begin to decompose, the infected blood spreads bacteria and spreads decomposition.
Simple columnar epithelial tissue is the surface of the mucous membrane that lines organs such as the stomach, the intestine, the uterus, and parts of the respiratory tract. It is involved in secretion and absorption of chemical substances. Decomposition of the intestines occurs as the tissue and lining of the organ become infected and decompose, which ends the secretion and absorption of chemical substances used in digestion, ending any nutritional value from being obtained, and preventing all cells from gaining nutrients needed to sustain themselves.
Pseudostratified epithelial tissue lines the passages of the respiratory system, which utilizes secretion through goblet cells and movement of mucus using the cilia. Gaseous bulla are formed in the lung and later joined together. Later, the lungs become soft, collapse, and are reduced to small black masses, losing their intended respiratory function and can no longer secrete chemicals to the cells of the body or mucus to linings, drying out the insides, making them leathery.
The keratinized stratified squamous epithelium is a tissue that has a thick layer of hardened, dead cells that is used to protect the body. The tissue protects the skin from injuries, chemicals, and pathogens. Non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium does not contain a protective layer and lines the mouth and esophagus. Decomposition immediately affects the keratinized tissue. As decomposition continues, the tissue will sag and will slip. The exposure of tissues compromises the protective nature of the skin and allows blood vessels to be exposed. Bacterial colonization of the blood vessels occurs, which causes branching patterns on the skin. There is also a leakage of blood from the orifices, eyes, nose, and ears. Non-keratinized stratified squamous epithelium is not immediately affected. At this stage of decomposition, the lining of the esophagus and mouth cannot carry out their intended function. Loose connective tissues typically have in common three characteristic components: cells, large amounts of amorphous ground substance, and protein fibers. They support and connect other tissues, from the connective tissue that surrounds muscle cells, to the tendons that attach muscle to bones, and to the skeleton that supports the positions of the body. Protection is another major function of connective tissue in the form of bones that protect delicate organs and the skeletal system. When connective tissue starts to decompose, the zombie is not going to be able to move or function properly. This makes it harder for the zombie to get around, proving them to be less lethal at this stage. Cartilage is a flexible connective tissue that contains no nerves and does not depend on the brain. This causes it to heal very slowly. When cartilage decomposes, the zombie's bodies will start to literally fall apart.
Adipose tissue, or fat, is an anatomical term for loose connective tissue composed of adipocytes. Its main role is to store energy in the form of fat, although it also cushions and insulates the body. Blood is considered a connective tissue because it has a matrix. The living cell types are red blood cells known as erythrocytes and white blood cells known as leukocytes. The fluid portion of whole blood is commonly called plasma. The principal job of an erythrocyte is to carry and deliver oxygen to the tissues. Leukocytes are white blood cells of the immune system involved in defending the body against both infectious disease and foreign materials. 5 different and diverse types of leukocytes exist, but they are all produced and derived from a multipotent cell in the bone marrow known as hematopoietic stem cell. Leukocytes are found throughout the body, including the blood and lymphatic system.
Compact bone consists of closely packed osteons or Haversian systems. In compact bone, the Haversian systems are packed tightly together to form what appears to be a solid mass. The skeleton provides mechanical protection for many of the body's internal organs, reducing risk of injury to them. For example, cranial bones protect the brain, vertebrae protect the spinal cord, and the ribcage protects the heart and lungs. When bone decomposes, there will be nothing left of the zombie or nothing left to protect the zombie's organs.
Skeletal muscle is present in the bones and tendons. Skeletal muscle is used to attach bones to tendons and is used in voluntary motions. Decomposition of skeletal muscles occurs much later and is one of the last types of tissues to decompose. The decomposition of this tissue results in the loss of voluntary functions impeded by the body's movement.
Cardiac muscle is present only in the heart and is responsible for the contractile wall of the cell. The cardiac muscle cells are branched and the ends unite at an intercalated disc, which are responsible for relaying signals from cell to cell during a heartbeat. Decomposition of the cardiac muscles of the heart result in the organ becoming soft and flabby, and the cavity appears stretched with thinner walls. This negatively affects contraction abilities, and the cardiac muscles cannot contract to pump blood throughout the body, ending the oxygenation of cells. This results in massive cell death.
Smooth muscle is found in the walls of the digestive tract, bladder, arteries, and other internal organs. These muscles control involuntary movements because they are controlled by different kinds of nerves and remain contracted for long periods of time than the skeletal muscles. Decomposition of smooth muscle ends the ability of involuntary movements and ends the functions of the digestive tract, bladder, arteries, and other internal organs. In the stomach, it prevents the digestion of food and the potential to gain nutrients.
Most neurons cannot divide to form new cells, so there's no way to replace them if they die. But living neurons continue to grow all of our lives, forming new branches and connections with other neurons. And there's another type of brain cell, called a glial cell, that can divide to form new cells. Glial cells help neurons do their job better and provide a framework to support them. In other words, the more you use your brain, the better it works. Without glial cells, we lose our senses.
This way.